Welcome back to the Always Right podcast, where we can't take Jamie seriously ever.
Mine doesn't give me a countdown anymore.
Probably because it knows you're never going to be ready.
Or I'm never serious. All right, I'm
True.
serious.
All
I
right.
got on
What?
Dragonfly. Nobody wears this stuff anymore.
It's Dragonfly.
It was this old rocker. I don't even know if they're still around. Sold rock company. It sold really cool shirts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so it's like a brand?
Yes, like Affliction.
Okay.
So we got to. I kind of feel like today's podcast. I know this isn't true. I'm hoping not. I almost feel like it's cracking the whip on Jamie because he needs to light a little fire under his
Well,
butt.
it's probably a guilty conscience then, because this wasn't targeted at you. This was more of like a target at both of us to stay on fire. Yes, so we're lighting a flame under our writing careers. And we're just trying to find that fire again. Like we talked about this in a few episodes ago where I was talking about how new authors always have that flame and you just want to keep adding wood to the pile. You don't want it to go out. So how do we restart the flame?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I
And
feel like right now we're just kind of like lightly simmering, like there's a little bit of a spark, but it's not.
I know, when I was like in fiction writing frenzy, I used to drive Daniel, and I probably drove you nuts too, because I'm like, "Ooh, I got this idea." I was so on fire. I had to tell you and to make you feel like you were in the movie that I was writing. So there are those times and things get in your way, life,
Mhm.
kids, school, work. But
Making money to pay for eggs.
yeah, no kidding. So, but you know what? And I'll kind of talk about in here a little bit this book I wrote called Mind Over Music, because I wrote a book about how to find your passion when you're a musician recording. And I actually thought about, I wanted to talk to you about this. I don't know what to call it, but I want to write one very similar, like Mind Over Writing, to help you get those flames back. So we might even co-write that one together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
along the same lines. But the first thing I would do is reflect on your passion. If you're like, man, haven't written for months, I'm out of it. Think about why you started writing in the first place. I
Mhm.
mean, what were the stories that you were eager to share?
Well,
Look back. Go ahead.
yeah, like
Yep.
even like where you were prepping to write, maybe your notes, your journals, whatever you wrote down, like, oh, like this is good. When you were in that flame and you're like, I love this story, where you wrote down your initial story, go back to it.
Yep. You may have taken audio recordings. You've been in a car and you had to go back and listen to them, because a lot of times when you come up with a scene and you record it on audio, you're excited about it. Like, oh, I got it. So you may hear that change in your voice, and maybe it will help to stoke those flames.
Yeah, you got to it's almost like you got to connect with the spark in order to get it back. So, one, connect and revisit what the original thought was, you know? Um maybe go from the original idea and maybe like say, okay, this is my original idea. What stopped me? What wall did I hit? And maybe you need to set new goals to get around that wall. Maybe the
And
initial maybe the initial thought was like created a wall that you couldn't get past, like with me and Canvas. I hit a brick wall with Canvas because I felt like that genre wasn't mine. And then when I switched it to supernatural, the
that
spark
is a
came
good goal,
back.
because I was going to ask you, like, well, what would be a goal? Because if I think about like times I've stopped and started writing, I didn't really have a goal. I'm just either on or off.
Mhm.
So, but you saying it, and I remember when you called me, he's like, you know what? I know I'm having trouble because it's a murder mystery, but how do I write? I'm
Yes,
all about
because
the
I
supernatural.
can keep it a murder mystery. I just had to have a supernatural element for it to be me.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
feel like
and
it's
it's
yeah.
1,000 times better. I mean, the stuff we discussed with Canvas, I'm like, okay, yeah, I will be a fan of this author. So, and I'm not really. My wife's into murder mysteries, and she's like, she'll watch those shows and stuff. I should probably be scared, but anyways, it doesn't really pull me in. But as soon as you started talking about the angels and this, and I'm like, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
so that's a goal. But
Yeah,
that's kind of
and I
you
felt like I
didn't.
was almost being a poser when I was sitting in this, genre as a non-supernatural writer. Like, I'm like, I'm not really I had to almost, like, do so much research. I'm like, I'm not even in this trope of writing, and I feel like I'm posing like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna do a serial killer novel." I'm not a serial killer novel writer. So I felt like that's not my thing. Even though, like, people can cross genres, it's just not my thing.
But with this goal for you, it was, I mean, it is a goal, but it was like an epiphany. It was a change.
Mhm.
So if I'm thinking about a goal for writing and I haven't written for 6 months and I need to take my own advice, I am really quick soon. Even if you just said, you know what, screw it, I want to open up my notebook or my computer and every day at 6:15 a.m. or 7:15 p.m., I'm just going to open it up and for 15 minutes, I will just write my thoughts.
Mhm.
Because, and this actually kind of links to my book, Mind Over Music, I push artists to do that. And what generally happens is like they'll go and they're like, okay, I got to turn on my recording workstation on my computer. And they turn it on. I don't really want to do this, but I promised myself 15 minutes or 20,
Mhm.
whatever it is. And then you start, I'll hit one piano chord. Wait a minute. I got an idea for another one. So if you just start the process and it's all you care about, like, okay, my goal is just to start the process. I don't care if I write anything. 9 times out of 10, it's going to click and you're going to start writing. You're going to look up and like, wait a minute, it's been an hour and a half? What? No way.
Mhm.
So it's just getting over. So if you're having this trouble, that's a goal I'd make. 15 minutes a day. I don't even care if you write one word, but open it up, think about it, and see what happens.
Well, and so another thing that made me think of this when you were talking was just setting a goal. But if you're hitting that wall of writer's block and you're kind of bored with what you've been doing and you're just like I can't get it. Maybe sit down with what your original idea was and write out an outline of chapters. Be like, okay, this is what I wanted to go with. This is what I wanted to do. And then when you start doing that, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I wanted the character to end up here. And so you're like, okay, now I maybe get like a little spark to go back to that point. Um,
I love
and
that. Yeah, no, I love that idea. I don't really do it with fiction. I know I should, but nonfiction, and it still works for fiction too. If you had an outline and you got bored, you're like, oh, I don't know where this is going. Like you said, you could jump down to the eighth bullet point, which could be chapter 8 or something, and like, I got an idea, and you can write it out, and you start building the skeleton throughout these chapters, and then you start gluing them together and making them work. But you don't have to. You don't have to write linearly. I feel for me, I can't. If I do that, God, I even think that with fiction, Carissa. There's times, even though I don't bullet point like you just said, I'll think of an idea and I'll jump down in the document and I'll write something like a paragraph or two just so I don't forget it.
yeah. I put a note in this episode about stepping outside your comfort zone and maybe exploring different genres. Now I say that, but then that may sound like a little like what? Why would I explore different genres if I'm trying to write fiction? Why would I go to nonfiction? So this is my process behind this. Going outside, so where I'm researching or not researching, where I'm writing about angels and like the kind of overlapping it into like religious stuff for a supernatural feel, maybe go read some context of your characters, whether they're real characters or they're mythological characters. Go down a maybe a research path and get like fueled by the characters, like getting fueled by like maybe you have dragons. Go read some lore on dragons and be like, oh yeah, I remember why I wanted to have dragons in this. Or the Nephilim, where I'm calling them Earthborns and Canvassed. Go read stuff on the Nephilims and the stories from other religions, because other religions have half deities in it. Go read these things that are outside your fiction writing and refuel that flame of those types of characters in your book. And it may be like, oh, I got to connect this. This is great. Yes, yes.
I got 2 points to make on that. And the first one has absolutely nothing to do with anything we just said.
Not surprised, but go
But it
ahead.
clicked in my brain, and I thought, I'm just throwing this out there before I forget it. Four Rivers, Crystal Gate, Canvassed. I know they're completely different,
Mm-hmm.
but one has angels and one has the devil. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of wonder if
You
they're
keep
really in
trying
the
to put these
same
in the same
world.
universe. You don't do
Yes.
that. I know, but they're not.
Yeah, but you could. You could loosely have it. And I'm not saying you even have to cross over, but like all the fiction titles I've written, they're literally in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
I've done little things to make sure they're connecting. Now you said, speaking of which, exploring different genres. That's my next point, which does have to do with this and my coughing that will not stop.
Where's your gallon of water?
It doesn't matter. It's this freaking flu I had a month ago. Good. There's one chunk out. You and I work good with different genres. there are going to be some of you who are listening to this. You're like, I can't do that. I'm only a horror writer. I can't write fantasy or mafia or a nonfiction book. Think about it. Try it. There's got to be, you go to Netflix, you don't, most people don't watch just all the same shows. Fantasy, fantasy, fantasy. No, I like this comedy. So you have different tastes.
Hmm.
So even if you're not putting out a book and you decide to write a romance novel, just dabble in it, especially if you're kind of stuck and you don't have that fire. Maybe switching over will kind of get you back in that writing mode, and then you can come back to your main genre
Hmm.
and pick
And
it
you
up,
never
and you
know,
might pull
you
some.
might find a whole new story that you actually finish.
Exactly, because you're pulling elements over from writing a different genre. So,
Yeah, but you might realize like, oh, this is good. And then you finish that, and then you're like, okay, now I can go back to this whatever I started. You know, because I mean, it's just one of those things. It's just a creative process, and sometimes you don't realize what you're trying to tap into, and that tapping into it might spark something else that you didn't even know existed there. All right.
other things you could do, and I really don't do this, maybe you do, is like engage with the community. I have a very small community. I have you,
Mhm.
and I have Daniel, and that's like my community, and Ritz. That's like my community. But a lot of authors find more help, like if they're discouraged or they need some ideas. There's all these writing communities
Mhm.
for different genres or
Yeah,
writing in
and
general.
that's there's an author I spoke with, and then she does this where she will engage with a lot of people in social media that kind of give she's created a lot of friend networks with people on Audible, people with book covers, people with uh, book interiors, all that stuff. So yeah, engaging with other people is going to keep you going. Like, as far as you're and I don't know if it's like a back mind effect that you've given a promise to someone and you're on a deadline with them that you feel like you need to kind of do, but that kind of comes back into hustle culture and you don't
Yeah.
want to get trapped in. So you got to be tread lightly with
Yeah,
that.
but you could have an accountability partner. We even talked about this earlier. I was like, man, if we meet, like start having Monday meetings or something, it'll keep me more on points.
Hmm.
So, and I don't even really consider that hustle culture. It's just keeping up and staying consistent.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And for me, I have we've talked about this in like, where's your writing area that works great? Where are you more comfortable? And I've tried different places. Now, when I wrote Crystal Gate, I was in my bed and I did it really on my iPad. Now, this desk space at night is my favorite spot, and sometime in the mornings and just random times of the day, but mostly at night is where I find I am more creative and more productive.
so you're talking about like
Finding
a
a routine
routine.
of where you're productive. What is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's, we discussed this before in another podcast. Early in the morning, I could get up at 5 and write. I could do it either audio or typing with my thumbs on my iPhone, or even I got a Apple Magic keyboard and I can sit there and type.
Mhm,
So, but yeah, find what's going to keep you in that routine. There's
mhm.
got to be a space, even like I said earlier, even if it's only 15 minutes for now to get you started. What
Yeah,
works best for
and
you?
we've talked about where we'll watch shows that get us inspired, but sometimes and I can't read while I'm writing. I can't read because I'm afraid that it'll overlap, and I don't wanna take someone else's work and put it in mine by accident, because I would never intentionally plagiarize, but I don't wanna take something and be like, "Ugh,"
Yeah,
but watching something will inspire my mind visually.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
But other people, some people are fine with reading widely and doing
Mhm,
that. So as long as you can separate, like you said, and not plagiarize.
mhm.
Like there was a, I forget who started with the kobolds and fantasy, and I forget. And all of a sudden I seen this young, I won't mention her name. She's not a writer anymore, but she put out some really cool books, but she was using the word kobolds, and I'm giggling because I'm like, she basically read this and took it from that.
Mm,
Yeah, and you'll see that in fantasy, like when the elves or the dwarves or the trolls, and then everybody starts using them.
right.
So just make it your own voice,
Yeah, and
even when you're watching something.
yeah. Something that just popped in my mind, I was thinking about, like, even though I don't like to read while I'm writing, something that I will do when I get stuck on when I'm having a conversation in the book, when there's a conversation piece in my book and there's dialogue, I will go to other fiction books and be like, okay, how did they do this? Like, I visually will look. I won't look at the words per se, but I'll look like, how did they write this? Was there a lot of he said, or she did this, or like, how do you make it engaging to where it's not you're always like, he said, she said, he said? Sorry, I'm back.
Bless you.
I gotta do it again.
He said, bless you again. Hey, better than me. If I start sneezing, I'll be 50 times. I'm
Same,
like
but
a
I
cat.
I usually have to take NyQuil and lay down for that if that happens because I'm just out for the day. Because if unless I'm, it's so weird. If I get on a sneezing like fit, it's constant unless I'm laying completely horizontal. As soon as I even elevate to a certain point, I'm sneezing again, and it's stupid.
Yeah, I don't know
Not
what
good.
even causes me to sneeze, but then it wrecks my voice because I'm like,
It's because of all your
achoo!
cats.
Yeah, but I could be away. I could be at Walmart and an older lady walks by with heavy perfume and I'm sneezing. I
Mhm.
could look up at the sun and I'm sneezing. I
Mhm.
could smile and I'm sneezing.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Ugh.
So, but it does make me think all that sneezing is that you definitely need to limit distractions when you're writing. So distractions, it could be I have no problem with this, maybe because my ADHD, I could sit there and write and Dinah could be on the couch, the TV could be on, the cats could be fighting. Wouldn't bother me. But some people it does.
Yeah, I
So
can, so I yes and no. I cannot sit on the couch while they're watching a show because I want to watch the show. I can listen to music sometimes in my ear and like if it's low and right, but honestly, I play video games.
as you write, how do you do that?
Well, because I play player versus player, so for me, you're not always actually engaging. Sometimes you're like flying into something, or you're waiting in the load screen, and so when I'm playing, even though I'm playing, my brain is thinking like, okay, how am I going to take this to the next level? Like, what
Mm,
am I going to do next? And then while I'm waiting, I'll just turn to my and I'll just
yeah.
type it out.
See, that would mess with me because then my brain's flowing and I'm like, oh, I got to come back and play. I have to finish it. But you did make me realize something. Yeah, I can't listen to music when I'm writing.
Well, sometimes I can, not all
Yeah,
the
I
time
cannot because I get lost
in the
being a
song.
vocalist in the
Yes,
yeah in the lyrics and
yes.
everything, and they start popping, and then that's too much for me.
That's why it has to be very low. Like I can't, if it's a high, like if it's turned up, I'm like, oh, I'm listening to the song, I'm enjoying it. Because I don't know if I recently. Do you have Apple Music?
No,
Rude.
I just pay for it on iTunes. I feel like it supports the artist better, but I'm sure I'm wrong.
Well, isn't iTunes and Apple Music in the same wheelhouse?
No, it is, but
Aren't they
it
both
would be a
owned by Apple?
subscription per month. It'd be a subscription per month. I don't really buy a lot of music, so I don't know if it really benefit me. But if I see a new album from a band I like, I'll just pay for it.
Well, I just did this on Apple Music, and I'm gonna do this on Amazon Music. And I created a. Let's see. I think I took a picture of this. I'm gonna send it to you. Created a playlist for my book.
No, I seen that.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So I created a playlist, put the cover of the book on there. I went in and made sure it fit, so I'm a stickler about marketing, made sure it fit in the square perfectly, made a separate content piece for that to fit it. So it wasn't stretched weird. Made a playlist so that way when I am needing to be like refueled, so when I'm driving, I will listen to my playlist. Like I know that I'm coming home and I'm going to have time to write. So I'm going to listen to the Canvas soundtrack and all the songs on there have something to do with a character, a chapter, like a theme song, like whatever it is. There is a song on there that deals with this book. I even
Yeah.
sent you a song and said, "Hey, I need you to
Yep.
examine this chord for literally 2 sentences. I just need 2 sentences, well, maybe even 1, that describes this chord of this song that's in my soundtrack." And you're like, "Let's get a little bit more detail, and this is what I need to do." Yeah, got it. So, yeah. But I will listen to that to be refueled. Back to my notes. Do you ever listen to music with your stuff, though, when you're not writing?
No, but I could if there's no vocal line. If it's
Mm,
just orchestration like Yanni or something, I could
mhm.
listen to piano or strings. That wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, yeah. And then so we would talk about this where people and we talk about this in hustle culture, um, that you feel like you have to hit a certain mark a lot of times with writing and like whatever you're doing. But really, we need to, even just in life in general, just embrace those small wins, those small victories. I did a paragraph, or I, cut out some of the crap, or something that I love about pseudo write that's new is I just rewrote. I'm just going back through and rewriting things. Like I've got baselines for several chapters in Canvas. Oops. But where Sudowrite just came out with this new plugin where it will be your unbiased friend.
That's
You
cool.
and you let's see, what is it called? I'll look in there. But what you
Unbiased friend.
yeah, it needs to be called unbiased friend. Hey Jenny, can we change this to unbiased friend?
Yeah. Complete critical at arsehole.
Well, no, it's called a deep seek instant reader. And the key is you take what you all of the whatever is in this little chapter that you've written, and you say you click the deep seek. Oh my gosh, deep seek instant reader. I just needed to be like unbiased friend. That would just be so much better. Can we rename this? Anyways, so when you click
Jenny,
that,
Jenny.
yeah, when you click that, let me tell you, I finished my prologue and I just finished my rewriting chapter 1. And I had the deep seek reader go in, and what it does, it breaks it down into awesome, boring, confusing, didn't believe categories. So it'll be like, okay, this vivid description of this bar atmosphere is especially chaotic with noise and visual. It makes it very um, interesting for readers, you know. And then it says like this inner monologue is sharp and relatable and makes you feel like you actually are hearing her talk to herself. Suspense and mystery built around the main man and the connection to Christine, and the captivating and keeping the reader engaged. The twist at the end, all these things it's telling you, like it's telling you what's awesome. But it'll be like, okay, now listen, this part was a little lengthy and it was kind of boring and drawn out. You might want to tighten that up. There was a couple words that were repetitive. You're like, oh, thank you. I didn't realize I did that. But then it'll be like, this part was confusing, but maybe you're trying to confuse the reader at this point and not tell them. So just make sure you're identifying this. Didn't believe this part, like, you know, this scene here where this is this, and I'm like, oh, you know what, that is kind of not believable. So it's really nice because it analyzes what you've written and said, okay, here's what's great, here's what's boring, here's what's confusing, and I didn't quite believe this part. So you're like, oh, thanks friend.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
So it helps you kind of get back on like, oh, you
I'll
know,
get in there someday.
I mean, I feel like I was personally attacked, but you're not a person, so I don't feel like anybody else knows.
No, I love it.
Yes. Anyways, sorry.
And I love this last point you have: seek inspiration from life.
Yes.
Um, and there have been times like I love being outside. I love hiking, and I've done that in the past. I'll go out and I'll go for a hike. Just and a lot of my stuff's fantasy anyway, so it works out if I'm out and just hiking through the forest. But look at the world around you. You know, visit new places, try new activities, something to just get those creative juices flowing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like a lot of times for me when I'm writing and I like do supernatural stuff, I'm always like I feel like I'm always in my head with God in the universe and just different elements that seeing the the complexity of the world and then yet the simplicity of it at the same time, and just viewing life in its simplicity sometimes is like, oh yes, this is beautiful. And you're like, oh yeah, these are little things you can add to your storyline that kind of like make it more real. It doesn't always have to be just the story. There could be small things that you can add, like, I don't know, like sometimes even when I'm talking to myself in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I would talk to myself in my head, and remember that, like, oh yeah, this is how we talk to ourselves. And
Yeah, because a lot of authors will use too many big words. I see it in songs too, you know, and you want it to be conversational. So think about that.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it is, well, no. But I mean, so for this episode, I also want to talk to you. What is it going to take for you? What are we going to do to kind of get you to spark more fire?
To do
You need to
exactly what I
you need to
said,
switch
you know,
books.
I can do it every morning, Carissa. There's no excuse because like I always have an excuse. Like now I'm working on taxes. So
Hmm.
what?
You do
I'm up
have a
at
book of
five.
excuses.
Yeah, I do.
Can
I'm
you
going to
write that
write.
book?
I'm going to write a book called The Book of Excuses
Hmm.
about all my
Yeah.
excuses.
Hmm.
It'll
Well, that's
take
what I'm saying.
much.
But have you thought about maybe changing and not doing Age of the Sigil and doing a different book?
No, I don't think that's it. I think you need to ride my arse and say, get on this. And tomorrow you text me, did you do what you said you was going to do? Because, you know, it's
How
as
much have
easy
you
as
written
putting,
today?
How much have I written today?
No, I'm gonna do
Nothing.
that every day.
Okay. No, that'll work.
Something. How much have you written today? Did you?
Because it don't take much. I mean, I could write for 30 minutes a day and be done in a month.
Mhm.
It's just compartmentalizing and saying, okay, every morning at 7 a.m. I'll do from 7 to 7:15, and it'll turn into 8 o'clock.
Prioritizing. Yeah.
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 Prioritize. Yep. And I know this. I teach this. So
So you're like the doctor who smokes?
I am. I'm
You
like
teach them
the
some advice?
yeah, I'm like the heavy dude. It's your personal trainer. Don't do hamburgers, and I'm eating, slipping them in my face. No pizza for you.
Mm. Well, that's like the hairdressers that wash their hair in hot water.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute.
And stop doing that. It's fading
Oh,
your
I'm
color. And
allowed
then
to
I'm
do
at home
that
like
because
torching hot water.
I'm allowed to do that because I'm not a hairdresser.
Well, I can put stuff in my hair more frequently than you and not have to charge myself.
That's true.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm taking a hot shower. Y'all ain't got this availability. Speaking of hair, this hair needs washed. It's disgusting.
This hair just needs dyed.
I
I'm not
literally,
bald.
when you pulled that up, I was like, "Where's your hair?"
Yeah, I know. That's what it is. People think you're going bald. No,
It's just white.
it's just white. If it was like the cool silvery color, I'd love it. It'd be like, man, he's looking so cool, but it just ain't there. It's just white. I hate it.
But you could be Gandalf.
Yeah, but no, like there's this dude
Perfect for
in his
your, it'd be
50s.
perfect for your fantasy books.
Yeah, Venderoff. No, I don't like it.
Mm-mm.
Vendoff.
Vendoff. That is your new name. Hey, Vendoff. How's it going?
It's not going well.
You're funny.
All right, any last thoughts?
Any last words? Chugs?
That's
No.
my last chug for this episode.
Mm. No. I really hope that people don't give up on their writing because a lot of times people say, I got a story, I think, but I can't get started, or I started a book, I don't
But
pick
that
it
was
up.
20 years ago,
Go
and
read it again. What fueled it? Go back over it. You know? What
yeah,
sparked
just look at Jay Willis. I mean, he said he wrote that book all those years ago, and then he says never want to put it out. And then now he's on fire.
it? Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
I've had other authors say, hey, my dad's dying, and he's like, are you ever going to finish that book?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and that's another thing. Don't wait till they're gone, because you don't want to have to say, I wish I would have done this beforehand. Get it done.
yep,
If you're doing it for someone, do it now. You know?
absolutely.
Yeah. Anyways,
So I'm doing age of the sigil for you, Carissa.
good job. So I don't have to finish it when you're dead.
That's true, because then you're like, oh my God, I got like 12 books I got to finish for Jamie.
Oh. Oh. All right. Anyways, so if you have other ideas for shows, then you have thoughts or anything on this particular episode, you can reach out to us at alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com, and you can send us a little email there, shoot it over. Or if you'd like to find out ways that you can listen to us, you can
Wait a
listen to
minute.
it. What?
Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Look at you. You got them right. Yes. And where can you find those?
Alwayswritepodcast.com. That's my first time ever nailing that. Don't expect it next week. I just remembered it from earlier.
Yes. Yeah, and even though this episode's probably going to be out at, like later down the road, and this would already have transpired by the time this one's out, next Monday we are going to go over to Story Magic, and we're going to be on their podcast, and we're going to be guests on their episode. So definitely go over to Story Magic and check out our episode that we just did with them. Super excited, and it's always nice to collaborate, like
Yeah.
collaborating with other authors and getting that fire. That's the same idea. Get on fire with what you're doing by networking and listening to podcasts. Like if you feel like you're like fighting no fuel, this is a great episode. And Story Magic has great episodes too, where you can listen
Indeed.
and get
Love it,
refueled.
love it, love it.
Yes. All right. Until next time, though, I'm author Carissa DeLay,
And I'm author Jamie Vendera.
and we'll see you in the next episode. And until then, always write.